Thank you for joining us today. Allison and I would like to share some information with you about how we work with online graduate students to develop a variety of skills, and especially the critical thinking aspect. We'll talk a little bit about our different positions in the SASC and highlight a few key resources that students have found particularly helpful when we work with them. Students do come from a variety of academic and cultural backgrounds. And so we're here to help with that transition, whether they've been out of school for a really long time or just have had a previous academic experience that hasn't quite prepared them. That's what we're here for, as well as to help students advance through a program. So I'm going to turn it over to Allison to talk a little bit about what she does as a learning specialist, and I will jump in a little bit later on with the writing specialist perspective.
Thanks, Lori. I am Allison Nealand. I am the learning specialist in the Student Academic Success Center. I work both with Portland campus and online students. And as a learning specialist, my role is really to support students with time management, including often students come to me asking about help to avoid procrastination. I also work on study strategies, including reading strategies and developing efficient reading habits. I also have a background in teaching English as a second language, so I work often with our multilingual students to really support developing academic and professional English skills as well.
All right, here we are.
We'd like to start out by really emphasizing that the SASC is for all students. We're not here just for struggling students, not just for students who are scoring low on assignments, but also those who just need some more support transitioning into their graduate programs or advancing through the programs that they're in. So we like to make sure that the messaging to students is really geared towards supporting everyone and not just those who are struggling. We also like to emphasize that students have, in most cases, very successful past academic experiences. They've made it this far in their academic careers, and we really honor and recognize that success that they've already had, but we also realize that they all can benefit from practicing how to think, read, and write more critically, and that often our UNE programs demand a deeper level of thinking or academic engagement than they've had in past experiences. So when students come to us, we recognize that all that past success really informs what they're doing now, and that there's this new level that they can get to. And because of that, we really focus in SASC on teaching students how to learn, not just telling them what to do, but really thinking about their learning process, which includes their reading and writing process. So we encourage the practice of metacognition, really their own awareness of thinking, of their own thinking and their own understanding, what they're doing when they hit roadblocks, for example, or when the reading assignments become difficult and the writing becomes really demanding. We have students do a lot of self-reflection. We also encourage goal setting, which includes figuring out the action steps towards those goals. Most of our students come with really big goals in mind, and sometimes those goals can feel overwhelming if we don't break them down into their steps. We encourage students to really develop strategies in communication. We know that academically and professionally, we communicate in many different ways, including through writing, but also through oral presentations and videos. PowerPoint slides become a tool for communicating as well. And certainly our discussion board posts too. And so we can help students really learn strategies for that effective communication, which involves academic and professional English skills as well. And all of this really accumulates in developing the skills needed to participate as a member of a professional discourse community. Our students are working towards professional careers that they'll need to engage with that professional language. And so that's really what we're here to help develop. Laura was as a recent graduate of the public health program, and she was kind enough to give us a very short video testimonial of how she used the SASC to really support her learning, even though she's also had very successful past academic experiences. And so this is just a short video from her sharing her experience as a student.
All right, this is going to be a good test to see if the video sound will come on. So please let me know, Allison, if you can't hear it.
Great.
Utilizing a fully online academic program, you definitely want to make sure you take advantage of UNI's online resources like their writing support specialists. In undergrad, I had two majors and one of them was English, and I consider myself a pretty strong writer, but I reached out to the writing support specialists regardless, and they were super helpful. I felt that they really made sure I was producing graduate level work, and I definitely recommend using them as a resource while you're at your program at UNI.
So I'm going to chime in here from the writing side of things with a quote from writer Ambrose Bierce, who famously said, "Good writing is clear thinking made visible." And I feel like this quote really sums up the work that I do with students and helping them process their learning and thinking around their ideas in ways that becomes more clear the more that they work with them in their writing drafts. So as learning and writing coaches, this is a lot of what we do is critical thinking skills. And we have the opportunity to talk one-on-one students and have more in-depth conversations about looking at drafts, looking at their learning situations and identifying their needs. And because the programs are so evidence-based, one of the things that we help with the most is helping students be aware of how they're using evidence, where they're putting it in their assignments, the purpose of how they're using it, as well as the more technical skills of summarizing, paraphrasing, and citing correctly. We also help them practice making connections and synthesizing the information from different places. And for example, we'll ask them questions about how is the information from the literature and the scholarly articles that you're reading connect to the course materials that you're reading or the videos that you're watching, and helping them see those relationships. And that is, regardless of the content, those are strategies that we talk about students trying to make those connections. We also talk about students thinking of how to take these strategies and use them in the future. We often are fortunate in having students meet with us more than once. And so we get to check in with them and have problem-solving discussions about what's the challenges they're facing, what's working, what's not, and brainstorm or try different strategies to be more reflective about their work and be more aware of their learning process. We really love to work with faculty as partners to support students, all students, and especially students that do need an extra hand. And we found over the years that early recommendations to connect with us and making personal direct referrals can make a huge difference in students being willing to meet with us and gain those foundational skills they need right at the beginning of a program. And we can help with that process by suggesting wording for announcements about SASC being available for all students. We can provide wording for personal messages to students if you're giving them feedback, direct feedback about work that you'd like to see, them improve on. We can follow up on any referrals that you make as well. And we're happy to reach out to students if you aren't sure if they are making that connection with us. And finally, we are interested in hearing from you about trends or academic needs that you're seeing with students. And that helps us make sure that we have appropriate resources or can build those resources for for those issues if we don't have them available. And finally, we also connect students to other UNE resources. And we frequently talk to students about reaching out to the library to gain those research skills. And we may connect students with a student access center if accommodations may appear to be appropriate. We also have a number of asynchronous resources on our SharePoint site, which include handouts and videos that students can access at any time. And these resources reinforce a number of the strategies that we use and talk about in our writing appointments. So I'm going to pause here to turn it over to Ashley, I believe, was going to step in to speak next.
That's great. Thank you. So I'm just going to take a moment to address bringing this into context with our courses. So I'm going to share my screen as well. And I want to also reiterate the idea that this is for everyone. So any students, if you're a faculty that you want to refer to the Student Academic Success Center, you can do that. And I'm going to show you how to get to the website, which is the next phase of this presentation. They're going to show us those resources on their website. We will also link to the website in the video that we send out after this recording is done. So there'll be lots of ways to access it, but in case you forget and you want to know how to navigate to it from the course, this is a sample course, but every course in our matric program should have Welcome, Getting Started, and Syllabus module. And within that, course resources. And the SASC is going to be linked under University Resources. So that will take you out of the course then, and you want to scroll down to UNE Student Assistant Resources and visit the SASC page. And that's the page we're going to dive deeper into now. So I'm going to pass it back once again and take it away.
Yeah, and you can always reach out to one of us if you aren't easily finding those resources or have a question about a particular one. Please feel free to contact me or Allison.
Yeah, absolutely. We're always available via email. So I'd like to be able to highlight some of the resources that we prepared, but I think this would be a great time to pause. Jennifer, I saw your comment in the chat about having some strategies for engaging with students, and I'd love to hear more about what's worked for you.
So, well, this is a suggestion that came from one of our candidates for the Associate Provost DEI position, to encourage utilizing resources and taking advantage of that. And so on the syllabus, what they've done is they've added a data and said visiting SASC would twice may result like 30%, I forget the stat, but basically showing that by visiting SASC at X number of times have proven to show an increase in your grade overall by the end of the term, or that 80% of, just really showing, also modeling maybe 50% of students who go to SASC see this or see that. So I'm sorry, that wasn't the most articulate because I don't remember what the data was that he shared. But the point is kind of tapping into that social cognitive theory that if we model and show that this actually works, and it doesn't mean, and to your point, it's not for someone who might be struggling, it's for anyone if you want to see some type of improvement in the course. So I'm sorry. I hope you understood. It's the end of the day.
Absolutely. Don't apologize at all.
Oh God. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that is terrific. And we do periodically collect some of that data, both in number, but also in student testimonial. And I think you're right. The more that students can hear from other students' voices, and also through sort of just those success markers, that it's worth the time, because we definitely struggle to convince students to come see us for the first time. Most of our students have very, very busy lives. And to fit one more meeting into their lives often feels quite daunting to them. So getting them to come see us the first time, once we get them in the door, we can often see them several times after that, because they see that it builds some efficiency into their study process. But I love the idea of working in some of that data or maybe student testimonials right into the syllabus. So thank you for sharing that. We will look into that and see if we can share out some things that might be included in the future.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump back to our online student SharePoint site. This is where we collect all the resources that we often share with students. And our long-term goal is to eventually get this better integrated into Brightspace so that it's not a separate platform that students have to go to. But for now, this is what we have. And we want to just give you a brief tour of these resources, both so you can direct students to them, and certainly you can use them as well in your own teaching or meeting with students. I'm going to also put in the chat the direct web link to this page, just so, although I love that you can navigate it to it from any course, you may end up wanting to just save it in your own system somewhere. So that link is now in the chat if you want to take that. So this is our online students page. And as I scroll through, you'll see that we have a couple videos we've created, 6 tips for success in online classes, as well as a brief introduction video that Lori and I put together. But this page is divided into 4 main categories: the writing support, learning support, course content tutoring, and academic and professional English. So I'm going to take you on a brief tour of the 2 areas that I focus on, the academic and professional English and the learning support. And then Lori's going to take it back over to really highlight the other 2 areas. So I'm going to briefly go into academic and professional English first. We find that our students come from a wide range of academic experiences and cultural backgrounds. And there is a certain set of vocabulary and organizational structures that are expected in academic coursework. And we're here to support that. So this might be students who've taken a break from their education, maybe a 5, 10, 15, or even 20-year gap in between their undergraduate and graduate work. This might also be for first-generation students who haven't had as much exposure to academic and professional English. And it's also certainly for our multilingual students who have possibly studied in other languages and now are taking on a new program in English. And so as I scroll through this, you'll see that on each of the pages we show you, there's always front and center the how to make an appointment. We use TutorTrack in order to schedule our appointments. Students are welcome to email us anytime, but it's easy for them to go into TutorTrack with their UNE username and password and find our available appointment times. And then on the right-hand side of the screen are a series of resources that we find that really support students in their academic work. I refer to this academic word list quite frequently to check in with students on just how many of those general but frequently used academic words they're familiar with, and we can begin to build that vocabulary, including the Manchester phrase bank that then takes the words not in isolation, but puts them in commonly used phrases that we'll often speak and write, and then therefore in our reading as well for those phrases. We also have a few resources specific to writing, and Lori's going to highlight a lot more of our writing resources. And I'll show you in a little bit some of our reading resources. But we've also put on this right-hand side some more advanced grammar practice and some useful pronunciation videos. If you're seeing that students need support with grammar and/or pronunciation, I'd really encourage you to connect them with me because it's much easier for me to really identify where their needs are and then direct them to the right resource. I'm going to back out of that and go back over to our online student page and just scroll back up to our learning support section. The learning support section is organized into frequently asked questions. So as I scroll down, you'll see again that link to get to TutorTrack, but also the questions that students most often come to me with. Time management, and always the question about how do I get myself to just get this work done? I find myself procrastinating quite frequently, are probably 2 of the most frequent reasons students come, and we have lots of resources for that. So for example, on the procrastination side, we talk to students a lot about how procrastination is not really a time management issue. It's actually an emotional regulation issue. We avoid our work because it feels too daunting, perhaps we're scared of failing, or it just feels too hard to get started. And so it's that emotional response that causes us to procrastinate. So we've put together, my colleague Sarah Ross and I have put together a short video kind of highlighting some of the resources that we have. And students are welcome to come and use these resources on their own. Though certainly if they talk to us first, we can kind of point them in the right direction a little bit more efficiently. And backing out of that again, the one last one I wanted to highlight before we flip over to some of the writing ideas is another thing I work with students frequently on is reading textbooks and articles, those peer-reviewed journal articles. Of course, most of our students have done a lot of reading in their past academic experiences, but they find themselves in a whole new context where the reading gets longer perhaps, and certainly more difficult. And so sometimes students come to me and say that they're spending 6 or 7 hours a day trying to read and understand all of their textbooks and articles that they're assigned. And we really work on building more efficiency into their reading process. Other students tell me they just don't have time in their lives to read at all. They're just not finding enough time to sit down and read. Maybe again, it's that they're avoiding it because it feels hard. So we can talk about ways to get started, ways to maybe not read from the top to bottom, but instead read more efficiently, and also to think critically as they read. So we have a series of resources that I often refer students to, 1 or 2 of these, depending on what we end up talking about. But the one I really want to highlight is this video down here on how to read a research article. Lori and I collaborated with Cadence in the library to really put together a short video that walks students through the different parts of a research article and what their different purposes might be, and so that they can really set a goal for their reading and then read the parts that really match those goals. So again, these are resources that you are welcome to share. I think I'll pause there and see if there are any questions related to either academic and professional English or to learning support. Yeah, good. And I see in the chat that there's some validation that these resources might be useful. So I appreciate that too. Certainly reach out if you find that there's things you wish your students had and we don't have up there yet. Amy.
I'm in the middle of sending you guys an email.
Yay.
I know that you guys do some fantastic resources for writing and for study and sort of what does it mean to be an online learner. What about math and science and statistics support? I'm working on a quantitative course for the doctoral program. And I know we have concerns about adult learners. Sure, you maybe took a math class 20 years ago, but now you're doing your dissertation and statistics are scary.
Perfect timing for that question, Amy, because that is one of the areas on our site that is in progress. We have content tutoring that has been ongoing mostly for public health, but we are interested in knowing other programs and courses that are using statistics that might benefit from these tutors and resources that we're building. So yeah, let us know, and I will take you actually to that piece of our SharePoint site just to show you what we have going so far. And before we do, are there any other questions for Allison from the learning specialist side? All right. I understand that some people may have had trouble getting the right link to joining us. So if you're just joining us now, welcome. And thanks for your patience in getting the right link. So we're back to the online student page and back to the 4 areas Allison has shown you, the learning support and academic and professional English. I will just quickly pop into the content tutoring. And again, this is a work in progress, as most of these pages are. And we have content tutors that are focusing mostly on statistical support. These are the courses that are receiving that support at this point. And there are some videos that have been created. I understand there is a shift from STATA to SAS that's happening. And so those resources will be developed for that particular tool. Our MPH tutors, just to give you a little sense of who else is out there supporting students from the SASC, these are all students that are in the College of Medicine currently and that have a public health degree or almost finishing their public health degree. So we have some really super tutors that are well-versed in supporting students in statistics and other research questions that they might have. All right, so I'm going to shift gears into the writing support, and we have our own special pages for that. We try to offer not only one-on-one appointments for students, but we've been trying some drop-in sessions as well, particularly around citation. We've done it a couple different ways. One is to offer once or twice a term students to drop in and ask questions. This term we've offered it weekly to students can come at a certain time every week. For some reason, this term, there hasn't been that much interest in the citation drop-ins, but we won't give up on that. We will continue to try to promote them and let students know that that's a good way, if they don't want to commit to an appointment, to talk to somebody and get some of their citation questions answered. So we always have an announcement here on any workshops or drop-ins on our pages on our SharePoint site. We have our writing page broken up into a couple different categories. Making an appointment, again, using our tutor track system, students can find times, nights, weekends. We try to have appointments available all week at different times, and they can always let us know if they aren't finding a time, and we will accommodate as much as possible. Over on this side here, we have categories of different types of writing. We'll start with that. And under this particular page, we introduce what it's expected in writing in the health sciences. This is a good beginning resource for students entering programs, writing about research. This is a nice companion to the How to Read a Scientific Article video that Allison just mentioned, helping students become familiar with the structure of scholarly work and knowing how to find and work with information effectively there. We often work with students around literature reviews. And again, that critical thinking piece comes in about how do you manage the evidence? How do you find the patterns and themes? And then how do you write about them? So we have some handouts in videos that are related to that. And there are a couple other types of writing that are listed on this page as well, including a little video about discussion posts. We continually revise and add to these pages. So again, hearing from you about particular needs helps us know how to target our resources. All right, so we'll go back to one of the other categories here. Integrating evidence and citing correctly. This is where we often start our conversations with students who come to us. They are very worried about learning the citation styles when they're starting out. And we have a number of resources available for them for that. Over on the side here, more general information about synthesis, what that means, and using a chart or an evidence table as a tool when they're doing literature reviews or other types of research. Again, helping them move forward in their critical thinking about what the findings, patterns, themes are. We have a little video about using evidence in writing and how to avoid plagiarism and information about paraphrasing effectively. So we have citation style guides for each style, depending on the program. These are created from the manuals and hopefully are meant to be very accessible for students to learn the basics of in-text citation and how to set up correct references entries. They often rely on a citation tool, which doesn't always do it correctly. So we walk them through how to use these handouts so they can edit their citations and references pages. We have a video that goes along with those handouts if students prefer to have that. And we often have drop-in sessions that also do a similar kind of tour through these citation guides. There are other types of information here about formatting and specific types of sources students might be interested in learning how to cite correctly. So this is a very popular page and resources, especially as students are getting started. And these may be of interest to you as faculty as well. So you can see what the students are looking at as far as citation guides that we're offering them. And finally, I'm going to take us to the general writing skills and strategies page, which hits a couple different points of the writing process. We emphasize to students that it takes a lot of practice to be a good writer. Even professional writers use other people to look at and give feedback on their work. So that it's really helpful to be able to look at drafts in different ways. So on this page, we have tips for getting started on getting over that hump of how do I start a draft and using the assignment prompt. We, again, are highlighting this critical thinking of synthesis and repeating some of these resources on this page as well. But I want to highlight today what we talk a lot about in writing appointments is the revision phase of the writing process. When students have a draft, this is where the critical thinking aspect really gets developed. And we have this improving clarity through revision checklist, which I will give you a quick tour of. This is something that might be very helpful for you as you are working with students and giving them feedback. The way that this is set up is in forms of suggestions over key areas that tend to make the most impact in improving a paper. So we've organized this into how do you make a paper more focused with a number of suggestions here, depending on the student's writing patterns. The development section, again, critical thinking, this is where students can learn how to be more specific in use of evidence, adding their voice, adding more analysis, and where to do that effectively in their papers. We talk about organization, transitions, and showing those relationships between ideas. And then source integration, which is smoothly putting evidence in and working it into the paragraphs and citing that correctly. And finally, we do talk about editing, and editing is different from revising in that we tackle the big picture issues first and then talk more about the sentence level issues. And the most common ones are finding more concise, formal, academic and professional wording style, and also just paying attention to sentence level structure, punctuation issues. So we invite you to use this document or pieces of it in whatever way is helpful to you. But these are the highlights of what we work on in writing appointments with students to help them take their drafts and really clarify their thinking about their purpose and what they're explaining, and helping their reader navigate those ideas efficiently.
Well, thank you all for taking the time today to join us and to hear about us. We really appreciate it. And we'd like to continue the conversation. So certainly feel free to send us emails if there are things that you have questions about or feedback you'd like for us. If there's things you're seeing with your students that you would like them to have more support of, we're always trying to be very responsive to student needs. And so we like to hear from you if you have things to share.
Yeah, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Thank you.